Jesus tells. It's a parable, as we know parables. But I want to share something with you. We're going to be looking at the parable of the rich man and Lazarus for a minute. This is what I want to share something with you. I have a friend of mine who's also a pastor here in the conference. He pastors the Green Lake Church up in Seattle. His name is John McClarty. Anybody know John McClarty? Yeah. John, this is a summation of his sermon today. Okay, ready? This is what he's preaching. This is what he's preaching today, right now. Well, he's probably done by now. We're just getting started. Okay, you ready? This is his little summation that he posted on Facebook last night. Love your neighbor seems like a straightforward directive. Just do it. However, when a group grows to more than a few people, love is not enough. Some will receive much more love than others. The people most likely to be overlooked are the shy, the dark-skinned, the socially marginal, the poor, the elderly, teenagers, those whose native language is foreign. Serving all these people well requires the church to organize and to give special attention to the people most likely to be overlooked. At least that's the way it was in the early Christian church in Acts 2-6. We cannot serve people well if we rely solely on spirituality and love. Effective, just service requires effective, sensitive organization. That's kind of the journey we started last week. Tomorrow's sermon at Green Lake Church. So I was encouraged to hear someone else is talking about the same thing that we're talking about. What do you think? Is that a good thing? All right. So, rich man and Lazarus. So let's talk about this story for just a minute. Luke chapter 16, verse 19. Jesus said, there was a certain rich man who was splendidly clothed in purple and fine linen, who lived each day in luxury. How often did he live in luxury? Every day. You know what purple is? What's purple? What does purple signify? Royalty. What else? Rich, wealth. That's what purple is. Do you know what the linen is? You know what Adam, you can't say. Do you know what linen? Do you know what this linen means when it says he was clothed in purple and fine linen, who lived each day in luxury? Anybody know? Besides Adam and me? Linen was his underpants. Yes, really. He was so rich, he had the best underpants ever. 16. Luke 16, verse 19. Yeah, verse 19. That's what it is. This guy was so rich that he wore linen underpants every day. I got the money. Mm-hmm. You didn't know? Did you know that? I just learned that. Yeah. So every day he lives in luxury. At his gate, verse 20, lay a poor man named Lazarus. Also, I found out something interesting. In all of the parables that Jesus told, parables, not the stories, but the parables, in all the parables that Jesus told, this is the only time he gives anybody a name. And it's Lazarus. Not the Lazarus that rose from the dead. Anybody know what the name Lazarus means? God helps. Lazarus, God helps. So he gives a name to this poor guy. The poor man named Lazarus, who was covered with sores. As Lazarus lay there longing for scraps from the rich man's table, the dogs would come and lick his open sores. Ew. Now, dogs were not man's best friend back then. No. Dogs were icky, awful. Yeah, they were like, feral cats. I mean, they just were, you didn't have them. They weren't your pet. No. So, you have the dogs who you are in such bad shape, the dogs are pretty happy that they get to come and lick the sores. That's kind of gross to me. Is that gross? Now, they talk about they would wipe off the table the gravy with bread, and then they had this little finger napkin they taught, the rich people had, that they would wipe the table down and all the scraps that were on the table, then they would throw that to the dogs, and the dogs would get something to eat. I mean, this guy would take even that. Verse 22, finally the poor man died and was carried by the angels to be with Abraham. You notice it doesn't say he was buried. Notice that. The rich man also died and was buried. And his soul went to the place of the dead. There in torment he saw Abraham in the far distance with Lazarus at his side. The rich man shouted, "Father Abraham, have some pity. Send Lazarus over here." He knew his name. Rich man knew his name. "Send Lazarus over here to dip his tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue. I'm in anguish in these flames." I'd want more than a drop of water on my tongue. But Abraham said to his son, "Remember that during your lifetime you had everything you wanted, and Lazarus had nothing. So now he is here being comforted, and you are in anguish. And besides, there's a great chasm separating us. No one can cross over to you from here, and no one can cross over to us from there." Then the rich man said, "Please, Father Abraham, at least send him to my father's home. For I have 5 brothers, and I want him to warn them so they don't end up in this place of torment." But Abraham said, "Moses and the prophets have warned them. Your brothers can read what they wrote." And the rich man replied, "No, Father Abraham, if someone is sent to them from the dead, then they will repent of their sins and turn to God." But Abraham said, "If they won't listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't be persuaded, even if someone rises from the dead." Talk about that for a minute. How about in the Remedy Bible, Miss Cynthia? Have you read this in the Remedy Bible? No. Got that app over there? Pull that app up, darling. Come on, let's get it. Remedy Bible, Luke chapter 16, verse 19, talks like this. Let's see. Let me get to the place I want to get to. Verse 25. But as the story goes, Abraham replied, "Son, don't you remember all the wealth and health you had during your lifetime while Lazarus suffered in poverty and sickness? He now is rejoicing here while you are in agony. Besides, the kingdom of love and the kingdom of selfishness are separated by such a chasm that those fixed in one cannot cross over to the other." Are you hearing that? There are 2 kingdoms. There's the kingdom of love and there's the kingdom of selfishness. And if we are fixed in either one, we cannot cross over to the other. If we are fixed in the kingdom of selfishness, we just can't get over to the other one. And you know, this fits really well with, I got to have the youth today. We were talking about a story that's in the Old Testament, and we talked about kingdoms and what kind of kingdom do we create in our own lives, in our own selves, that we kind of like and we get annoyed if someone messes with our kingdom. And one of the things we talked about was the kingdom of the remote. I have the kingdom of the remote. Anybody have that in your house? The kingdom of the remote. And I don't want you to mess with me. Don't pick that up and be changing things around, because I know what I like, right? So what do? Will we let our hearts be moved and changed? And that person I just talked about, just so you know, you're not the only one that does that. Other people do that too. All right, so now, if you're fixed in the kingdom of love, you don't cross over into selfishness. Does that make sense? So if you're in the kingdom of selfishness, it's really hard to get to the kingdom of love. But if you're getting the kingdom of love, you just don't go to the kingdom of selfishness. Did you have a comment, Joshua?
I said yes.
Yes. Yes, you did say yes. So, there's this chasm that separates, that doesn't work. So you have this rich man is living in the kingdom of
Selfishness.
That's right, Joshua. And he just doesn't cross over. I mean, he just doesn't give any love to Lazarus, does he? No. In fact, he doesn't even share a nice clean pair of linen underpants with him. He doesn't. He was selfish. He didn't give him the little finger napkin that wipes the bread and the gravy off the table so he could have some crumbs. I mean, he gave him nothing. So this is what I want us to think about. What is it that we have that is so precious, that makes us rich and wealthy and healthy? Love. Yes, it is. It makes us healthy. It makes us wealthy. It puts us in a place of being able to share with somebody else. This story isn't about heaven and hell. The story is about love or not. The story is about, are we willing to share what we have? If we want to go to a place of material, we can go to Acts chapter 2. And in Acts chapter 2, the material things that those who believed had, those who lived in the kingdom of love, they very freely shared with everybody. It says no one had need. No one. They all put everything together in a pot. And no one had need. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Yes. But we missed that somehow. And if we're going to be considering the why, what was the why, Miss Diane? Why? Came out of your mouth.
Last week, Saturday.
Yes. What was the why? What did I write sideways on that board?
Something to do with our neighbors.
Yeah, something to do with our neighbors or
Ourselves.
being.
Compassionate and kind.
That's right, being the neighbor.
Us being the neighbor to the
Us being the neighbor. Yes. If the why is being a neighbor, how can we be a neighbor here in this place? So there's some ideas that God has brought to us. There's some opportunities that he's giving us. But in order to do that, it really requires, and I wonder, hey, Brenda, when you walk back out there, would you look on the table and see if there are some gray, says my pledge, pieces of paper? In order to do that, I just need to ask you if you want to be part of what we're talking about, because this isn't my thing. It's my thing. It's the thing I like to do. But this isn't my thing. Is this New Life? Is this what New Life wants to do? Do we want to be out in our community, engage out there? Would we like to work together to open and build a thrift store and accompanying ministries? Could we have a youth center? We have so many kids here. Thank you so much. We have so many kids in this community. More than half of the demographic here are children. Could we have a place for them? We have probably half of the demographic are single parent, or half of the adults are single parents who are undereducated, who would like to either get a high school diploma or a GED. So Kim has already said, and I'll just remind you, that Kim has just signed up with an online course that she'll get at 32 years old. She'll get a high school diploma, not a GED. Now, how cool is that? Is that cool, Miss Teacher? Yeah, that's awesome. So, very nice. So, how do we, man, Joshua, I'm so putting you to work, dude. I'm telling you. Could we have an education center where we tutor these adults so that they can get their education, so they can help their children who aren't passing school because they don't have parents who can help them? Miss Teacher? Would we want to do that? Would we be interested in partnering with the city and the port for transitional housing? Would we like to be part of that? Would we like to be part of the solution in the city of Fife for people to be able to see their lives differently, and along the way, introduce them to Jesus?
Yes.
You would like to do that? Well, then that would be for you. You'll need a pen. You can put it in the offering box, prayer box. So here is this rich man and Lazarus, and he had something. Yeah, so you need to take one to Bruce, right? Okay, take one to Bruce. There you go. Rich man and Lazarus is about somebody had something pretty amazing, and somebody didn't have anything, and there just wasn't any sharing that went on. I think we have a lot to share.